Day 1, pitch 2.
If there's anything you've gleaned from listening to this show, it's that fundraising from VCs is really hard. Like pushing a boulder uphill, both ways, in the snow. VCs have very particular things they're looking for, like vertical SaaS on last week's show. They've seen it work before, they think it'll work again. So when you show up in the pitch room with a business that doesn't quite fit the venture mold, that rock you're pushing up a hill, it's not round anymore. That's what this week's founder is up against. But on top of that, she has to also sell them on why Africa is a market worth betting on. Have I set the stakes high enough yet? Yeah, the bar is really high. But if anyone can clear it, it's Maryam Brima, founder of Kimoyo. I'm Josh Muccio, and this is The Pitch, where real entrepreneurs pitch real investors for real money.
Hi, I'm Erica Wenger, and I'm general partner of Park Rangers Capital.
Hi, I'm Gillian Manes, managing partner of Structure Capital.
Hi, I'm Martin Tobias with Incisive Ventures.
Hi, I'm Charles Hudson, managing partner, Precursor Ventures.
The pitch for Kimoyo is coming up after this. And if you want to watch the video of this pitch, go to pitch.show/YouTube. New episodes premiere on YouTube Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Join us in the chat. I'll be there. The information provided on this show is not intended to be investment advice and should not be relied upon as such. The investors on today's episode are providing their opinions based on their own assessment of the business presented. Those opinions should not be considered professional investment advice. By the way, you won't hear from Charles during the pitch because his fund is already invested, but you will hear from him after the founder leaves the room. All right, on with the pitch.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
I'm
Hi
Miriam.
there.
Nice to meet you.
What's your Miriam?
Miriam, yes.
Nice to meet you.
Miriam.
Martin.
Thank you.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
I'm
to meet
Gillian.
you. Nice to meet you. Awesome. Okay, well, before I introduce myself, I want to introduce you to an industry that's currently experiencing 2x yearly growth that you are not invested in. Companies are spending an annual $2.2 billion on research in Africa. My name is Maryam Brima. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kimoyo Insights, a research analytics platform helping global companies get feedback from African consumers. Prior to Kimoyo, I was a lead product designer at Netflix, spearheading products like the mobile-only plan. And that product, like all others, started with research. It took our team 2 to 3 weeks to recruit participants in the UK and India. In Kenya and Nigeria, it took 2 to 3 months. It was so frustrating. And Netflix is not alone. Participant recruitment is the number one problem for teams around the world conducting research across the continent. Modern research platforms like usertesting.com and traditional research agencies do not cater to African demographics. Kimoyo is changing that. Since launching last year, we have over 11,000 participants in our private beta and have generated $115,000 in revenue, supporting companies like Microsoft and Flutterwave. We are raising a $1 million pre-seed to automate the entire research workflow. From research logistics through analysis, Kimoyo will help companies build better products for Africans and with Africans, starting with the most important thing, talking to their customers.
Can you tell us about you? You seem to be like all that to say.
So like I said, my name's Miriam. I'm originally from New York, but I'm of Nigerian descent. I've always been a Nigerian American, Nigerian first, American second. Prior to Netflix, I actually managed a cross-functional research and design team, and I studied history of art and architecture at Harvard.
Are you a first-time founder?
Yes, I am.
Can you dig a little bit more into the technology that you have developed?
Yeah, so what we're building is a platform that you can automate the entire scheduling, the recruitment, the screening of our participants, and the qualification of our participants. Right now, we are more like that logistics intermediary. The actual research does not happen on our platform, just to start. If you are familiar with like userinterviews.com, it's a similar play. So what that looks like is pretty much a two-sided marketplace where you have participants on one end and you have the scheduling and the payments portion on the other end.
talk about how do you qualify the participants? How do you onboard the participants?
Yeah. What's really awesome is I don't know how many Africans you all know, but in general, if you don't even ask for an opinion, let's just say from someone like my mother or my father, I don't have to pay them for their opinion. And so it's actually very easy if I'm telling you a bunch of us, hey, like, we're going to pay you for what you do for free. That's actually the easiest part of getting the participants. The harder part to your question is the qualification. Right. And what we've done is we've created a 3-step process that automates that qualification and trains actually participants on how to give feedback efficiently and helpful for our studies. So before you're even able to apply to a study on Kimoyo, we actually make sure that you're a qualified participant.
Can you characterize the types of studies? Are these consumer products? Are these software applications? Are these general market studies?
So what we've looked at are what are the fastest growing sectors and industries that are doing research at the highest rate. And so R&D spend, basically. Initially starting with tech. We focus on tech hubs right now to start. So cool. and fastest growing markets, I should say. So Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Rwanda, and South Africa are markets that we're targeting just now. But however, we want to break into consumer packaged goods. That's actually like our longer term play.
So I wanted to talk to you about how much they're getting paid to do these research studies. So let's say I want to do the Netflix study. How much am I getting paid hourly? And then also, how does that compare to like other jobs in the area? So I can kind of understand. Because I know it's different, obviously, by Africa's so huge. So
Right. Thank you for saying that. It is not a country.
Oh my God.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so typically we typically charge around $100 to $150 per participant, yielding a 70% profit margin. And so what we charge, we fix our rates accordingly by time. So for an hour-long study, we might charge $20 and kind of fix it along there. And that's 20 USD. We pay in USD and gets dispersed in the local currency.
And then how does the 20 USD compare to like, I mean, I know it just varies so much, it's so hard to even say, but like varies to a different hourly rate in the areas where you're focusing.
It's very good.
Very good.
And I love your question because actually, ironically, we thought we would actually get more people that were for just the money. And don't get me wrong, yes, there's that subset.
Yeah.
But honestly, the majority of our participants felt thrilled that they were able to test cutting edge technology. They actually feel like they're a part of that.
They're on the front lines.
Yeah,
I mean, they're the ones deciding, hey, Netflix, launch this, don't launch this.
Exactly.
And they don't feel like I think that's sometimes the problem with emerging markets is you can feel like you're kind of the last to see things, the last to experience things. And we're kind of flipping that on its head.
Exactly.
Which is really special.
Exactly.
And who are your customers now?
So we are working, I should say, with Microsoft, Flutterwave, which is the largest fintech company in Africa. Chipper Cash, we've worked with BBC, Amazon. We've noticed that majority of our customers are tending to be in the fintech space. However, we have been recently started conversations with a large multinational corporation in the CPG space.
Okay, and what are your revenues?
Revenue, we've done $115,000 in revenue today. Yeah.
For how long?
Since launching last year.
So 12 months?
Yeah.
So have you looked at your payment model, a little reassessed it?
We've been able to start looking at more like subscription-based assessments, and Flutterwave is actually the first trial where we've had with that. We are officially their African research provider on a yearly contract.
And the yearly contract is?
With Flutterwave, it's $75,000, but we're targeting around $55,000 for the cost of contracts, which is in line with the industry standard, like usertesting.com and users.
I know you have some U.S. investors. Do you have local VCs from Africa as investors?
No, we do not have local VCs, but we're in later stage due diligence with a few.
How much have you raised?
We have raised 30% of our round, so about $300,000.
How much revenue will you be at 12 months?
We've been targeting $300,000 in ARR.
Are there any other research firms that are targeting the African continent the way that you guys are? Like, what does the competitor landscape look like?
Yeah, if you're talking about traditional research agencies, if we call those firms, you look at an Ipsos or Kantar or even McKinsey to some extent. But they're mostly those traditional research agencies where they're usually partnering with smaller agencies on the ground to help execute the research on there. So typically what you notice with them is that they are specifically very siloed in the markets that they focus on. So they might say, we do research in Nigeria or we do research in Kenya, but to do research across the continent, which is typically what is needed, they're not doing that, which is how we've differentiated ourselves.
And then how do you guys partner on the ground there? Like, I'm trying to understand. You said that your competitors work with small agencies and that's not what you do. And I'm trying to understand like what you guys do that makes you really special.
I see. Our competitors work with smaller agencies, yes. But where our competitors are not doing is they're not using tech to actually outreach to their participants. So they're a lot slower. So that's where it takes
that's
2 to 3 months.
differentiator.
Exactly. And so you can't do that with a competitor on the ground because they're literally recruiting face to face.
How do you think about the defensibility of this? So like, let's say I listen to what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is genius. $20 an hour versus 1.5 a day.
Yeah.
We all know Africa's exploding. If you are in venture in the slightest, you know this. Why wouldn't I go, I'm going to build this platform.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get contracts.
Right.
And I'm going to go, you know what, you've got Microsoft and whatever, and I'm going to get Netflix and all the, and like, just kind of split the market. Like, how do you think about your defensibility?
Yeah, our defensibility comes into the third portion of the research workflow analysis. For every hour that you spend talking to a customer, it's estimated that you spend 2 to 3 hours analyzing that study. The way we look at it is that we want to get to the point that you can click a button and be able to say, just get insights. And maybe in 2 to 3 minutes, you're able to pull those patterns out. So where the defensibility actually comes from is the fact that we want to be able to take a lot of the information that we're learning in these videos and be able to build our own model that understands the local colloquialisms. For example, like, what does it mean to say jakba, which is the process of like leaving Nigeria? That's very colloquial. You wouldn't be able to build that into your model in the same way that we have. And the more customers that we have on our platform conducting research, the more participants that we have on our platform conducting research, the stronger that our model actually becomes and the analysis becomes.
I have 2 questions. You say you've already got 300,000 commitments on this $1 million. Do you have terms on that $1 million?
Yes, a $6 million cap.
Okay, and then the second question is, I don't know anything about how to value these kind of companies.
Yeah.
Do you have any comparables or ideas how these kind of research companies are valued?
Yeah, so we could talk about usertesting.com and UserZoom because they're the leaders in this space. Usertesting.com reached 100 million in ARR. I believe it was in about 15 years. They started in 2008. They weren't subscription-based until about 2015. And then from there, I think by 2021, they had crossed over the 100 million mark with 2,300 customers. When you look at UserZoom, on the other hand, they learned from usertesting.com and they went as quickly as they could into the subscription model. And they were able to do that in, I believe, 10 years with 1,000 customers.
And you think Africa is big enough to get to $100 million?
Are you looking at markets outside of Africa?
Africa has 54 markets. We're looking at Africa only. In 7 years, Africa will be home to 1/3 of the global population of youth. By 2050, 1 out of every 5 customers on the internet will be in Africa. Africa in the past decade has, out of the top 10 countries with the fastest growing GDP, 5 of those markets are in Africa. Retail spend in 2018 was about $1.4 trillion. 2/3 of that was consumer packaged goods. And it's considered one of the fastest growing regions for consumer packaged goods spending in the world. On top of that, when it comes to profitability margins, it's the most profitable region, bar none, to East Asia.
This is when you drop the mic.
Yeah.
That was,
She knows her stuff.
yeah, like, talk about it.
Are you guys a Delaware C Corp?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
I really like what you've been building. I did my first investment in Africa in Tanzania a couple months ago, a fintech company. I'm looking for more. You seem really deep involved in the market that you're in. I unfortunately don't understand how to value these kind of companies, and a company growing to only $300,000 of revenue at the end of this thing, it seems to me a little bit like a land grab versus a technology play. I know you're saying that you're able to compete with the other companies because of your technology, but this seems to me like the kind of thing that somebody would want to buy because of your market penetration in Africa, one of these other companies. And those other companies took 15 years to get to $100 million. In my mind, that's just too damn long. And so I'm a little, because I don't understand the dynamics of how you would value this company 2 or 3 years from now versus a B2B software company. This is not. This is a people business where you're basically renting people. And for that reason, it doesn't fit my thesis and I'm out.
I will just clarify a few things. We are a B2B platform. That's first. But then the second I would say is that one company, which was the first in the space, took 15 years. The other took 10. But your company that's in Tanzania, glad to have them as a customer.
Absolutely.
I think the silence is the money that you all are thinking about investing. Yeah.
You're good. I am so torn about this.
Me
I'm
too.
killing myself. And the reason
too.
I am is I've actually invested in 6 companies in Africa.
Nice.
Okay. 5 went belly up.
Yeah.
I am worried because I have scars because I've invested in Africa and just didn't know what the hell I was doing, right? So I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you more time to think if you want.
Yeah,
if you're saying you have
please.
no idea. Okay.
Killing myself.
I will say I'm a big like founder over everything else, and I think you're brilliant.
Thank you.
You know your numbers. You're whip smart. I really like you. What I will tell you is I only invest in US-based companies, typically with US customers.
Yeah.
So I've never invested in Africa before, but I really like you.
Yeah.
And I think that this is an underserved market, and I really like you. So that's why I'm struggling. I think I just don't understand the market well enough.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think I have to be out.
Okay.
But I will tell you that I am like, I really, really like you. And I might like call you tonight and tell you that I'm messed up.
For sure.
And I really think you're a star. I just don't
Yeah.
invest in Africa and I don't know the market.
I'll let you know Microsoft is a US company, but just saying. And they've done more than 4 studies with us in the past year.
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
you're a Delaware C Corp. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I just don't. Yeah. I'm going to think about it.
For sure. For sure. We'll talk tonight. Yeah. Jillian.
Jillian, you should do it.
Yeah, you should do it.
Yeah,
Because
I
you
mean,
do invest in Africa. I mean,
Yeah.
But I got burned.
She got
But-
burned.
but-
5 times.
Wouldn't it have been nice to have research to help justify your
Yeah,
your
you
price?
know, you're
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
right. But this is a hard lift. I'm out. Okay.
Okay.
But what I can do is I can introduce you to 4 funds
Okay.
that invest in Africa. And I wish I could. I think it's my scar tissue.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that there are 6 companies that you invested in. Over what period of time was it? Not to trigger you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It was been over the last 6 years.
Over the last 6 years. I mean, because a 12% success rate, it sounds really good for a fund.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Listen.
1 out of 6.
That's, you know what, that's actually not a bad point.
Yeah.
Like it's I
Truthfully,
mean,
Mary-
and I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just saying, like, you know, what I'm getting at and what I'm trying to, I also try to reconcile is a lot of times I feel like when I'm talking about, you know, our company, I'm really trying to sell people in Africa first. And so and it makes sense, but you know, when you look at the way that the dynamics of, you know, the venture capital space is, this is not off. You know, like when funding goes down in America, it goes down in Africa at the similar rate, right? And in terms of like success rate, 12% for a fund is
listen,
amazing. So Julie, what are you doing?
No, I know. What are you doing? I know something. Truthfully, Miriam,
Yeah.
I also don't think I can add the value
Yeah.
that some of these other funds were going to
For
make
sure.
introductions to who have boots
You got
on the
4
ground.
funds.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so I truly also think, what can I add here?
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course, yeah. All right.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you. It was so
Thank
good to
you.
meet you.
Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you.
I look forward. I'll send my information so we can
Yeah,
get to
please
Please
do.
do.
Please do, actually.
Thanks.
She is
That's a little-
so bettable. It is unreal.
Yeah.
She's very impressive. I'm surprised that she has no local VCs. I get a little concerned when I see only U.S. VCs in a foreign
Maybe
country.
she hasn't gone.
country.
Has she pitched?
I mean, maybe because she's in New York.
Charles?
I mean, do you have any
I go,
background
but
on that?
we've had totally polar experiences. We've had some companies where we've had tons of local capital and it's been highly problematic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've had other cases where we've had it and it's been absolutely essential. I don't know how many. I know it's not 0. I also don't know how many of the African funds she's pitched.
Josh?
New investor acronym about to drop. EBITDA. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. But for the purposes of this conversation, you can think of EBITDA like net income, actual profits of the business. All right, back to me. Why do you need to know how this is going to be valued in a couple of years? Is it because you
How
need
the
to
do I know what the thing's worth in the future?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
you've
a
got
big-
300,000 K in revenue. What's that worth? If you value it on like EBITDA, cash flow or something, if this is a traditional business, because those people renting businesses are typically valued on multiples of EBITDA, not multiples of revenue.
Yes.
Like, so this is not a SaaS software company that could get 20x revenue. This is probably like 3x EBITDA. And at 300K, your EBITDA is 0.
Yeah.
This is
That's it.
project-based. This is like a consulting company. Consulting companies sell at 3 or 1x
sales,
revenue, maybe 3 or 5x EBITDA.
yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm investing at 6. Okay. In order for me to make 10 times my money, the thing has to be worth $60 million. What kind of revenue and multiple do I have to get to a $60 million valuation? If you're talking 3 times EBITDA, they need to be spitting out $20 million of EBITDA.
Which is a lot.
And that's a lot of
type
EBITDA
of-
Yeah.
on this kind of business.
Yeah.
I just think, and it took the competitor 15 years to get to $100 million.
that worried me.
And you probably need to be $100 million top line to get 20 million of EBITDA, and then your thing's worth $60 million.
The numbers.
I'm really, my brain's exploding trying to figure out how the thing is worth. How
So
do I make
even-
10x my money?
So what valuation would have made this interesting?
I don't think it's a valuation thing for me. It's a business model thing. I just couldn't get around this having a premium multiple at any kind of exit. I mean, who knows? She could create the leading brand in Africa, but it's more likely that usertesting.com or somebody else comes along and buys it. This seems like a land grab. Okay, you're the number one user researcher in Africa. You've got Microsoft and blah, blah, blah. And one of those $100 million companies comes in and buys her. But, then the question is, at what price? Right? I don't think it ends up being a $1 billion exit or even $100 million exit. I think it ends up being a maybe mid double digits exit. And
It's actually a great point. Like, everything that I invest in as an emerging fund needs to have the potential to 100x.
Yeah.
For the math to
and I
make
just
sense.
do not.
Not 10,
I-
even 100.
I cannot get my brain around this one because you're basically renting people, right? There's not a lot of technology scaling and enablement there, and it's not a recurring model business. It's a project by project.
You're not selling
business.
software.
You're not selling software. You're renting people.
It's not defensible.
That is not defensible at all. And you're renting people for, a 75% margin. Next guy comes along, does it at 50% margin.
Yeah.
And there will be somebody that comes into this business and is willing to operate at a lower margin because there's no technology barrier.
Yes.
And
That's it.
That's just not a venture scale fundable business in my opinion.
I feel like you were more likely to invest before I walked in the room
Oh,
and started asking
100%. He made a
Sorry
really
about that.
he made a really smart point that I actually
apologize.
didn't think about. Was it's actually you're renting people, not software.
You're renting
and I
people.
Think, and we all talked about the defensibility. That was obvious. We all
That's a
saw
big
that.
problem.
But you not being able to value the business properly, and I didn't think about that.
Right after this, I ran into Miriam in the lobby, and she told me this would be her last pitch for a while. When we come back, why stopping your fundraise could actually help your fundraise. This episode will continue after this. Welcome back to The Pitch, Africa edition. Jillian and Erica did connect with Miriam after the fact, but nothing came of it. A month later, I called Miriam to check in. And first things first, how do you feel about your pitch on our show?
I felt good about it. I thought Jillian was going to flip.
I know.
I was like, come on, Jillian, because I read her bio earlier, and I was like, you've done this. There was one mistake. I did my math wrong, which is I always know not to do math on the spot. And I think I pushed Jillian on like, I think it was like 1 out of 6 people.
You said it was like 12% success rate or something?
Definitely not 12%. And so that was the one where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go on like the podcast and like, she doesn't know math. And so, yeah.
You're good. Last time we talked right outside of the pitch room, you said, that's my last pitch for a while. I'm going to pause on fundraising. What was going on there?
The market is not great. What I kept bumping up against was kind of similar to what we were hearing on the pitch, which is that people just wanted to like kind of have a little bit more understanding of the market sizing. And of course, like, the easiest way to show market sizing for me, what I heard is like, let's just show revenue and like customer growth. That would be a lot easier than trying to, get people over the hump of like, here's this imaginary market of data analytics in Africa, because literally it's a data desert. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go full head product sales. And it's so funny. It's kind of like dating where you're like, oh no, I'm done. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
The investors are finding you, aren't they?
Yeah, literally. I kid you not. We said that and I'm like, I'm done. Like, no, we're going to come back out in like Q4, like everybody else. And I got next week, I think the next week I got like 3 emails, like inbound. One of the headlines said request for investment. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, and so I've been getting those stuff. So maybe I'm just going to keep saying I'm unavailable. And then maybe, that's the secret.
Maybe that's the play. You'd raised 30% of your round, $300,000 when you came on the show in June. Have you raised any more since then?
Yeah, it was a small, we actually, all the rest are African investors. Our strategy was to first go with US/Western, more well-known names, honestly, and then switch over to African investors with that kind of validation.
So you thought if you could get valued by some of these Silicon Valley VCs who, think like a 6 mil cap is like really, really low, then you go into Africa and they can't negotiate you down.
Right, exactly. But yeah, we added 3 more investors. They're all African.
That's great. How much more have you raised on top of the 300?
Probably like 37 or so K that we've raised since.
Okay.
There's some other ones that are a step before term sheets. And so it's a potential like 550K that's like waiting there.
I want to shift gears a bit. The investors on our show seemed like they didn't know how to evaluate this kind of business. Martin Tobias put it this way in the pitch room. Basically, he's like, he doesn't understand what Kimoyo might sell for as a multiple of revenue. Whereas his other investments that are like a strict B2B SaaS, like only software sales cycle, right? Where you sell the software and it just scales and there's no human component. And like those are all priced at like, a good one's like 20x revenue when they sell. And he's looking at your business and the human component and realizing this doesn't scale. And so he had a hard time understanding how Kimoyo could produce the venture size return that he needs for his fund.
Interesting. That's cool to hear. It's not cool. Is it? No, but it makes me understand what he kept meaning, because he was saying value. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't see the value? How do you not see that this is going to be like, at least at the minimum, a couple $100 million business?
Yeah.
But like, I see where the disconnect is now, because I think this is helpful, because I think what people hear is that the human side of it, and it's like, oh, you need to keep scaling participants. Mm-hmm. However, the biggest feedback that we get is people want to be able to use their own participants. They're like, we want to use the platform to schedule, manage, whatever, but we also want to be able to talk to our own participants versus trying to find new people.
Oh, interesting.
And so we did that. We have what we're building now is going to launch probably middle of September. So we've created one revenue stream that associates that with that's a product offering for that, and we charge a flat fee for that.
If that became the pitch and there was like some real traction with that, and you could, still have a network of participants, but where you really provide value is in this platform that, heck, even your competitors, your agencies running research could use to become a better agency. Like that's a pitch that could potentially, tweak the right buttons for the venture investors, at least, on the pitch show.
That's great feedback. And you should probably just sell for me, actually, because that's exactly what I've been trying to say, Josh.
I'm ready to go. Put me to work. So you said this during your pitch. A lot of times I feel like when I'm talking about our company, I'm really trying to sell people on Africa first. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's interesting. It almost feels like I like to choose the path of most resistance, because it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like, I don't know how much I want to say this, but I'm going to say it and then see if like I want to keep saying it. It almost feels like when I was trying to break into tech as a Black woman, right? Mm-hmm. And it's actually like, let me just be real. Here's what I feel. It almost feels like being a Black woman is like the equivalent of what I'm doing with Kimoyo. Because it's like, okay, not only do I have to tell you on now being a woman, now like okay, like, and then I have to go over the hump of also now being Black, what I mean? And so it's like,
and now you have to do this for Africa. Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like what it feels like. And it's like, and it's not as intense as, the stuff I deal with as being a Black woman, but it does feel like it carries a similar undertone, where it's like, I don't have to tell you about why you should invest in an entire continent. I just need to tell you I should invest in me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it really is. I don't know if you heard it in the room, but Erica said, she's like, if you're in venture in the slightest, you know that Africa is exploding. Right. So like that should be, you shouldn't have to be defending Africa.
Yeah, you would think. But then I think even in that situation, and again, I love Julian, but this is why I was telling Julian, I was like, I'm not trying to like come at you, but it's ironic because you all just said that statement, and then the exact statement after it was like, oh, but I'm scarred from Africa, and I'm like you is 1 out of 6, I think, that was said, and one of them was a unicorn. You know what I mean? And the one was a unicorn. So in
It
6
was?
tries, it was Flutterwave, one of our customers.
Holy
Yeah.
that venture math works out. That's a great fund right there. If it was just those 6 investments.
Right. And I'm doing the math now. 16%. 16% of your investment was a unicorn. And there's only 9 unicorns or 10 unicorns in Africa. It's one thing to say, yes, we all understand Africa is growing, but then that means we also should hold it to similar standards. You know what I mean? Like people want the same success as you want in the US, but you want a lower failure rate than you see in the US. Because honestly, if we probably compared what everyone's venture success was outside of Africa, I can guarantee you it wasn't at 16%.
It's another situation where the bar is even higher. And it shouldn't be.
Look, I get it. I think the way I look at it is like, we're early to the market. We're early to this space. But I think in 2 years, 3 years time, everyone's going to be shocked at like, what do you mean that you didn't understand the market for data in Africa across all 54 countries? But it's fine. I'm happy to be part of the group of people that's trying to make the case for data across the continent.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, making the trip out to San Diego, spending some time with us.
Yeah, shout out to the pitch for it's like now becoming like the mentor show, like a therapy show almost. Like
the investors tear them down, I build them up.
Awesome. No, I will say honestly, this whole experience has been amazing. The investors were great, and like just in general, like it was an awesome experience. And so we're really appreciative of it and excited to be a part of the community.
And we're excited that the Pitch Cinematic Universe has expanded to Africa. If you want to hear another pitch for a user research startup, go check out user interviews on episode 66. Since the show, they're doing really great. They raised a $27.5 million Series B in 2022. Yeah, you're definitely going to want to go listen to that episode. Next week on The Pitch, we're putting the hard in hardware. Not that it ever left.
How many devices do you have deployed right now?
Deployed none. We have total 10 of these in the world.
I see.
Okay, so 0 deployed, 0 pilots.
That's next week in The Pitch Room. And if you want to watch the show, check out our YouTube channel at The Pitch Show. See you next Wednesday. Applications are open for the next season of The Pitch. We're going to be in Miami. More details coming. There will be 18 startups, a ton of really great investors. We're doing pre-seed, seed. Go apply at pitch.show/apply. And if you've applied before, go ahead and apply again. See you in Miami in January. This episode was made by me, Josh Muccio, Lisa Muccio, Carrie Ann Thomas, Anna Ladd, and Enoch Kim. Music in today's show is from our many stars, Joey Cantor, New Body Electric, Anders, The Muse Maker, and Breakmaster Cylinder. We're on Twitter, still refusing to call it X, Instagram, and TikTok at The Pitch Show. And if you want more, subscribe to Pitch Plus. You'll get ad-free listening to the entire catalog and occasional bonus content. Plus, it's a really good way to support the show. Just go to pitch.show/plus to learn more. The Pitch is made in partnership with the Vox Media Podcast Network. The Pitch, Inc. and their respective employees and affiliates do not provide investment advice or make investment recommendations. The information provided on this show should not be used as the basis for making investment decisions. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult with their own investment advisors before making any investment decisions.